Good evening, everyone. Please take your seats and welcome. I call this November 12th, 2024 hybrid administrative meeting of the Board of County Commissioners to order. Commissioner Quesada is excused and Commissioner Barboa will attend via Zoom. We will have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in silence.
Madam Chair, I just want to ask if we can remember Raquel Sachs, the MDC officer that recently died in the car accident. If you could during the moment of silence.
Keep her and her family in your heart. Thank you, Commissioner. Please stand me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
The flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3, Madam Interim County Manager, are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, we'd like to, item 5M, Planning and Development Services, Property Nuisance Abatement, Pajarito Mesa, and Unplatted Tract to be removed from the consent agenda and added as item 7E under the adoption of resolution. And a vote is required for the above change to the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Item E. Okay. Commissioners, any additional changes? Seeing none, I move approval of the agenda, and if we can have a roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Second.
Yes, ma'am. Chair Baca?
Yes.
Vice Chair Olivas?
Yes.
Commissioner Barboa?
Yes.
Commissioner Benson?
Yes.
So called.
And I'm going to take a moment of privilege, and I just want to say, as we all know up here, we will be getting a new county manager starting tomorrow. Today is Interim County Manager Reagan's last day as the manager up here on the dais, and so we brought her a gift. And thanks so much, Shirley, for all of your good work. We didn't skip a beat. We know that Shirley will still be with us as the DCM and doing such an admirable job. But thank you so much for filling in the interim.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I want to thank you first for your vote of confidence in me and selecting me to stand in some tall shoes and steer this big ship. But I really want to thank all of the employees, my teammates, my coworkers, whatever you want to call yourselves. You really stepped up and told me, you just offered me all of your support, whether it was moral support, all of the things you did in your jobs. You just stepped up to another level, and I can't tell you how much that means to me. I've been receiving a lot of thank yous, and I appreciate that more than words can say. We do have a new county manager coming in tomorrow, Cindy Chavez. And just like you supported me, I need you to support her, because I'll be there supporting her, because we got to do it all together. And she can only be as successful as we are, and we are only as successful as she is. So we need to support her as she continues to move us on into the next adventure that we have, or ventures, because we never just have one, that we have here at the county. And again, thank you so much. I learned a lot. I have some ideas for her to cut down on some of the signing. I've never signed my name so many times. If I don't know how to spell Shirley by now, I'm in big trouble. But again, thank you all, and I'm surprised. So thank you.
It's hard to surprise Shirley too, so thank you. Okay, we move on to item 4, public comment and communications. before we have the communications, we will hear public comment. So each person has 2 minutes, and you will be alerted about your remaining time. When your name is called, please make your way to the podium if you are here in person, and then we will move on to online. Before making your statements, please state your name for the record. And to maintain order and decorum and in the spirit of professionalism, we please ask that you stick to your 2-minute time limit. And Julianne, would you please read the names?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 9 signed up this evening, starting off with Mr. Don Schrader, followed by Theodore Uguay, followed by Marcus Porter.
Don Schrader. When voters in Germany chose Hitler, did any of them imagine the hell their nation would cause and suffer? Hitler targeted millions of Jews, gays, gypsies, handicapped, communists to lock up and murder them. Trump targets undocumented brown and black immigrants to curse and deport them. The crime rate among undocumented immigrants is lower than for people born in the United States. Immigrants do many jobs people born here do not want. Trump threatens to punish us who damn his hate-filled words and actions. Both Trump and Hitler suffered awful abuse from their fathers. Trump's father taught Trump to worship money and power. Trump's father taught Trump to do anything he could get away with, to hog more money and power, no matter how many people he wronged. Trump and Hitler starved for love, abused people, abuse other people unless and until they heal inside. Sadly, many abused people never heal, especially if millions cheer and swallow their lies and hate.
Thank you, Mr. Schrader.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Theodore Igbohai, and I am proud to represent the men and women of the Bernalillo County Fire Department as their Vice President of Albuquerque Area Firefighters. I am here to speak in support of the changes to the Bernalillo County Drug and Alcohol-Free Workplace Policy. Countless municipalities, including Phoenix, New York, and Philadelphia, have already taken steps to protect employees' rights to use cannabis during their time off. We're not reinventing the wheel, just applying changes that have shown positive results in other cities. It's taken years of advocacy and courage from our members to reach this resolution. Today, I'm reminded of the bravery of my fellow brothers and sisters who, through service to their country and the armed forces, became uniquely qualified to the role of firefighter, but along with this dedication came unique mental and physical tolls. And all firefighters, regardless of prior life experience, endure post-traumatic stress, cancer, and other ailments at rates drastically higher than other professions. Thus, we ask Bernalillo County to honor their legal right to use this medication. Cannabis can safely replace numerous other, often harmful medications and is proven beneficial for recovery from various ailments. Finally, I want to acknowledge the political courage of our elected officials, especially Vice Chair Olivas, who has championed this change. Although it is common in countless counties and cities, we understood that change here wouldn't be easy. Many elected officials either wouldn't or could not support this urgently needed step. It's always easier to maintain the status quo, to dismiss what needs to be done, but we're grateful to those who have taken the step to protect our firefighters and all Bernalillo County employees who stand to benefit from this change. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Marcus Porter, followed by Rudolph Serrano, followed by Catherine McGill.
My name is Marcus Porter. Madam Chair, Commissioners, thanks for allowing me to be a part of this public comment. So once again, I'm Marcus Porter. I'm the Chief of Policy and Programming at New Mexico Black Leadership Council. Once again, thank you for allowing us to convey the recommendation for the use of the opioid settlement funds that reflects community sentiment and our combined lived experiences. We're very pleased at NMBLC that we were able to host one of the listening sessions during the research phase of this strategic plan. And some of the biggest topics outlined in those discussions are laid out in the recommendations, such as a dedicated coordinator role, community advisory board, and transparency in reporting, because there's a common theme of transparency through all of those three recommendations. Prevention, however, needed more attention. To most people, prevention is invisible because when it's done well, it results in normalcy. Organizations like NMBLC and some of our partners like ACS have been investing in root cause programming to stop the vicious cycle of treatment and relapse and move toward prevention and education. One of the best preventative tools that has been studied in practically every state is guaranteed basic income. Although public safety has not been the aim of many of the GBI pilots, and therefore not used in much of the research, preventative research, the outcomes are undeniable and they're well documented. It's also recommended that we make it clear in the document and any resulting legislation that families of those lost to the epidemic are allowed access to the wraparound services that exist or that may come into being because of this recommendation. When parents lose a child or siblings lose their counterpart, they're much more susceptible to going down that same path that took their loved one. So, if we can move more towards preventative and proactive methods of addressing these outcomes, we can help our fellow community members progress. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Chairback, members of the commission, no, I didn't sell drugs to Roy Salomon, nor he buy them. But our brothers did have problems with drugs, and people love to say the Solomon brothers, the Serrano brothers, and take all the family down. And that's what drugs do. They take families down. You know, so we need to make sure that if we are prescribing drugs to recovery, is just for a terminal time of 3 to 6 months. To do more is just feeding the problem. It's just helping those drug companies to keep on taking our nation down. So we have to be very careful. You know, that passed from not from my parents, because my dad was a chief of police. He hated drugs. But as soon as we got here, we got into the culture, and now I'm trying to get my children out of it, the next generation. We have to think in the next generation too, when we're thinking about prescribing drugs to our people. And that's what I want the opioid settlement to go to something that we can secure, that is just a pass through 3 months. Okay, just let's until you're out, and not like something that we're just gonna have to get the taxpayers' money into buying drugs for more people, which is usually what has happened since the Percocet times. So I'm asking you to, you know, ask please the doctor and his team to make sure that we guarantee that within 6 months, we're going to have the dose to zero if we're going to prescribe opioids. So it's fair enough. It's a middle ground, you know, okay? I'm against totally, but if you guys are going to do it, let's do it just, you know, to repair the person and not to destroy their families. Thank you very much, and congratulations for your positions. You guys got my vote.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Solano.
Catherine McGill, followed by Miguel Titman, followed by Bobby Egan.
Good evening, Chair Baca, Commissioners, Burnco staff. Congratulations, Interim County Manager Reagan. You have done an excellent job. My name is Catherine McGill. I'm the founder, director of the New Mexico Black Leadership Council. I'd like you to please accept my sincere appreciation for this collaborative effort to address the distribution and implementation of the opioid settlement funds between Bernalillo County and the city of Albuquerque. This is precisely the type of strategic partnership our communities need, and not just today, but across all areas where government and community intersect. As we embark on this journey, I want to emphasize a critical point about inclusion. We must be careful not to perpetuate the tricultural myth, a long-standing notion in New Mexico that limits the scope of our community to only 3 cultural groups. I'm looking at images on websites, individuals included in advertising campaigns, the campaigns themselves, the messaging, and the targeted groups for funded programs. I have 3 key points that I want to leave you with today. First, we must have a community advisory council with teeth. For real impact, a properly vetted community advisory council is essential. A council empowered with real authority to make recommendations that our legislative bodies will respect and act upon. We need a council guided by the principle of coactive power, as described by Mary Parker Follett, a shared power that builds with and through community collaboration, not over it. Secondly, we must have shared language and clarity. To achieve meaningful change, we must establish clear definition for terms like equity-centered intervention and meaningful collaboration. What do they look like in practice? How do we measure them? And finally, an emphasis on prevention with a balanced approach. This effort must address both prevention, intervention, and treatment. The goal is to prevent future generations from facing this crisis, but we cannot ignore those already struggling. This isn't an either-or issue, but a both-and approach. And I would just say that we want this settlement's impact to be as broad, deep, and lasting as it has the potential to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGill.
Miguel Tittman, followed by Bobby Egan.
Madam County Chair, Commissioners, Madam Interim County Manager, thank you for your term. We appreciate all of your service. My name is Miguel Tittman. I'm the president of IFF Local 244, which is the firefighters that represent both the county and the city. I urge your support to the resolution regarding medicinal or cannabis. For us, it's medicinal. This is a long time coming for us, and I want to acknowledge the work that my members have put into this, including this was not spearheaded by us in terms of the executive board. This was brought to us by our members. This was brought to us specifically by our veteran members and our members that suffer with occupational problems like PTSD. So we advocate on their behalf. That's our job. That's as elected officials that represent the firefighters, and that's what we have. 2.5 years have led to this. I want to acknowledge Commissioner Olivas for the courage to do this. This is wasn't an easy thing to do, and we've been trying to pass legislation that addresses this for the past 2 sessions. And even in a state like New Mexico, it's a difficult thing to do. So much praise to everybody involved that has got us to this point. I want to also acknowledge that this, if passed, this puts the county in a unique position that is going to be more beneficial than the position that the city's in. And I'm a city firefighter, but I represent both county and city firefighters. But in terms of a policy that acknowledges people's right and really puts a foundation to workers' rights, because that's what this is about. This is about workers' rights to use a medicine on their days off, and we really want to urge your support, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tittman.
Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Bobby Egan. I've been with County Fire for 8 years and 15 years overall in the fire service. For 2 years, our union committee has been researching the benefits of medical cannabis for our firefighters. So instead of trying to squeeze all that research and proven data into 2 minutes, I'll just try to explain why it is so necessary to the short and long-term health of our department members. Due to the demands of our job, firefighters suffer at exponentially higher rates than the general public from conditions that cannabis has been proven to treat and is recognized by the New Mexico Department of Health. These include both physical and mental conditions such as chronic pain, inflammation, PTSD symptoms, anxiety, and sleep disorders. During this period of research, we've spoken to a lot of departments who have gone this route, some much larger than ours, like Pittsburgh, Prince Williams County, and New York City Fire. All of the departments have seen a reduction in off-duty alcohol-related issues and improved mental health after they approved cannabis for their firefighters. In my time in this line of work, I've seen us go from the tough it out mentality to the recognition of mental health burdens we experience from the job. I feel like it has become a priority, and now you have an opportunity to prove to us that you do really take this seriously as well. I have had friends who have had to retire early from the fire department due to PTSD issues, and as my friend Ryan put it, this is the most important tool in my mental health toolbox. I wouldn't be here without it. We are not asking for any special rights or exceptions. Firefighters sacrifice a lot and should be allowed the same freedoms and rights as every other New Mexican. Please help protect the protectors. Thank you for your support, Commissioner Olivas, and thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And we have one speaker via Zoom, Julie Radosevich. However, we're having some technical issues, so we're gonna have to reconnect to the Zoom. So when we can bring her back online, then I can let you know when we can reconvene.
Okay, we'll do that. I have a couple of statements. I offer the following statement regarding the closed meeting held today, Tuesday, November 12th, 2024 at 1:30. Only those items described on the published notice and agenda for the closed meeting held today, November 12th, 2024, were discussed at that closed meeting. I need a motion for approval of this statement, and it will become part of the minutes of
Make
this
a motion to approve.
meeting. Moved and seconded. We need to do a,
Chair Barboa? No, Chair Baca? God,
yes,
I'm looking at the wrong names. Chair Baca?
yes.
Vice Chair Olivas?
Yes.
Commissioner Barboa?
Yes.
Commissioner Benson?
Yes.
That passes, thank you. And my second statement, I move that the Bernalillo County Attorney be authorized to proceed with the matters discussed in the closed meeting held on Tuesday, November 12th, 2024, within the parameters set by this commission.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Chair Baca?
Yes.
Vice Chair Olivas?
Yes.
Commissioner Barboa?
Yes.
Commissioner Benson?
Yes.
So called. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we move on to 4A, Behavioral Health Division. A discussion of our opioid settlement funds strategic plan. Introduction by DCM Lindstrom. Dr. Lindstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. You're all quite aware that this is a product that has been in the works for quite a long time. I think this began to be discussed back in January of this year. We're going to have a presentation for you first from Julie Ron, who's the Senior Technical Advisor with Vital Strategies. And she's doing this remotely, and hopefully the connections will all work.
Thank you, Dr. Lindstrom. If it's all right, I'd like to share my screen and get the presentation going. All right. So thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners, for inviting me here tonight to talk about the Opioid Settlement Fund strategic plan that Vital Strategies has developed for Bernalillo County and the city of Albuquerque. So I wanted to provide a very brief overview of what's in the strategic plan and to discuss some potential next steps and potential future work. The plan is available publicly on the Bernalillo County website that's linked here. So what went into the plan? There were several key questions that guided our work. We began our work in earnest in late April, early May of this year. And so it was a rather fast process that I hope will be continued in future years for future planning cycles. We were guided by these key questions around how can the opioid settlement funds investments be supported by local data that was available, supported by evidence-based strategies, supported by public input, which is a very important part of the mirror resolutions that the County Commission and the City Council put together last October. And we wanted to understand how could these investments be sustainable and how can they be consistent with local resolutions as well as aligned with the national settlement agreements. So what this strategic plan does not cover are federal or state level policy changes. We really kept the focus on what the city and county are able to do. This is not a detailed spend plan with dollar amounts or percentages, since those funding decisions would come from a body like this. And it's not an implementation plan, which the city and county administrative staff will develop. So overall, we came up with 28 recommendations, and we certainly could have shortened it or lengthened it. We had a lot of very rich data that came from public input, and we wanted to honor all the voices that provided that incredible feedback to help us craft these recommendations. And so you'll see how public input shows up in each of our recommendations. You'll also see how we included available overdose data and drug use epidemiology data to inform the recommendations. And we aligned the recommendations with the national settlement agreements with allowable uses, as well as evidence-based interventions and best practices from around the country. So this is just a brief visual for how we structure the recommendations. In the
Ms.
center,
Ms.
we
Ron?
believe that,
Ms.
yes.
Ron, I just want to interrupt just slightly for a moment for the public watching. We are not able to get the feed for the presentation, so you don't have the visual on. Unfortunately, it's our capacity is not strong enough at the moment.
I see.
So you can
That's
just
all
go
right.
through, but I would like to, for the record, give the location of this electronically where people can go and find this. So what is the link or the website for folks to go? Dr. Lindstrom, do you know that, or would that be on the Bernalillo County? We can have that on the Bernalillo County website. It's on our Bernalillo County website. We apologize for the technical difficulty. Please continue, Ms. Ron.
I just wanted
Thank you,
to add,
Madam
Chair.
Chair.
I think from the Zoom side, sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think from the Zoom side, if people maybe YouTube isn't able to, but on the Zoom side, I can see the presentation just fine.
Okay, there's another option. Thank you, Commissioner Barboa. This is, we'll do the best we can, and I apologize. Please continue, Ms. Ron.
Thank you for all that feedback. I've resumed sharing via Zoom. The strategic plan and the visuals I'm talking about are available on the Bernalillo County website for opioid settlement funds. So our recommendations are structured around equity-centered interventions at the core. And we felt it was important and to honor all the perspectives that were shared with us through public input and the disparities that we see in overdose data in who is impacted, to make sure that any recommendations we have are focused very specifically on groups that are most impacted. And from equity-centered interventions, we sort of fan out to evidence-based intervention categories spanning from crisis response to prevention, harm reduction, treatment, recovery, and very importantly, stabilizing supports. On the left side of the graphic, we felt it was important to highlight some of the structural level changes that would really support ongoing investments in opioid settlement funds. So this includes collaborative planning and coordination, inclusive funding and financing strategies, and accountable monitoring and evaluation. Here's a quick snapshot of all 28 recommendations organized by the strategic priorities. And I'm gonna quickly go through some of the recommendations. I know we're a bit short on time today. I just want to highlight when you're reading the report and the recommendation section, each recommendation is formatted in a table. And so at the top, you'll see the strategic priority. So I'm showing the first one, which is collaborative planning and coordination. And the first one is to formalize intergovernmental cooperation. And then we provide some specific action steps. And then the rest of the table outlines how this is backed up in the data that we did gather from May through September. So we show you how each recommendation shows up in public input. These were from the town halls and listening sessions that many community members have attended. We show you how this shows up in the overdose data. That's very local and specific to Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. And we also provide the rationale, including any best practices based on the principles for spending of the funds, based on evidence-based interventions. And so we link many references if folks are interested in looking at our citations. So just in the interest of time, I won't go over all of these recommendations, but I will say that last Friday evening, the LGCC subcommittee met to review many of these recommendations, and that body has some plans to meet again in December to discuss what's next for the strategic plan and what implementation could possibly look like. So I'd like to round out our conversation by talking about some upcoming dates. So the hope is that if the strategic plan is seen as a valuable tool, that the county commission and city council would vote to approve it, then the next step would be to implement the plan. And this is where it's important to get the city and county administrative staff and their expertise involved in knowing what is already funded, what levels of funding are already available, how the opioid settlement funds can supplement rather than replace currently funded actions, and think about what gaps remain that the opioid settlement funds could fill that are still aligned with allowable uses of the funds. And so this brings me to potential future work. Vital Strategies has offered to provide a seconded staff position to the city or to the county to support ongoing planning, implementation, and ongoing coordination. There's been an incredible amount of coordination between city, county, and state for gathering local data, and we do hope that effort continues. And having a dedicated coordination role can really ensure that there could be ongoing public input, ongoing data collection efforts, and also support monitoring, evaluation, and reporting efforts back to the public so that community members can understand how the funds are being utilized and some of those outcomes. All right, I will pause here and take any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Rod. Vice Chair Olivas, and we do have connection with the other public commenter, and we'll get to you in a moment, but I want to defer to the commission first, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Julie Ron and Cindy Sockerman, Vital Strategies, all of the folks that worked on this project, I just want to give a huge shout out and much kudos for the excellent work product that we have before us here, and our own behavioral health staff, Dr. Lindstrom, and there's many folks at the city as well that this is really truly a collaborative effort, and I'm just so proud to be involved in this and have been part of making this happen. But you all are the ones that you know, boots on the ground, that went out, talked to our communities, led these listening sessions, and collected the feedback and did it in a really thoughtful and I think a really impactful way. So I appreciate that. I just wanted to build on what Julie just said about the LGCC and sort of next steps. I sit on the LGCC, and I was also appointed to this subcommittee. The current plan, the current thinking here, of course, all of this funding, all future plans are subject to approval by their various legislative bodies. You know, the funds that the city has, the funds that the county has remain at those places. But I think the LGCC made a commitment to its members and you know, in a consensus way that we were going to continue to work on this and work on this in a subcommittee to really take this strategic plan and take it down to really an implementation plan, or at least an implementation strategy, if you will. And we realize that the board itself may not set that plan, but we've already got our senior level staff, Mr. Kemp at the city and Dr. Lindstrom here at the county working together. We were able to distill several key points of this that we felt like the city and the county could have the greatest impact on. I think everybody on LGCC acknowledges that the need is far greater than the funding that's available currently or even with the opioid settlement funding. So we will never be able to meet the need with the current funding stream that we have, but this helps get us a little closer. And so all that to say that the subcommittee is continuing to meet. I think we've got an aggressive timeline because we really do truly want to get this money out into the community where it can have an impact. That's one of the messages I heard loud and clear in my listening session, and I think we heard it across the region. But we do want to have a methodical approach, and we want to try and build consensus between the city and the county to make this as effective as possible. And I think we're on the right path. But I just wanted to kind of update my colleagues up here that from that first subcommittee meeting that we had last Friday night, I think we made a lot of progress, and we are giving our staff a few weeks to work on some of the things that we talked about, some of the additional information that we needed, and then we'll go back to that subcommittee meeting in early December, and hopefully we'll be ready to. The LGCC actually meets the week after that, so hopefully we will be able to move something to the LGCC. Not guaranteeing that, but that's really the hope and the aspiration there. And one way or another, we discussed that this plan that's before us tonight will absolutely be part of that future package. But what's still in flux, right, is that kind of implementation piece. As Ms. Ron said, funding amounts are not in here. The top priorities are not necessarily in here because this document, rightly so, didn't try to put its finger on the scale for those kind of policy calls, those legislative questions that we all have to answer to our constituents for. So I think I just wanted to reassure my colleagues that we're working expeditiously on this and reassure the public that we are focused on this and we will turn this around very quickly. And again, I just want to express my thanks and my support to Vital Strategies and Ms. Cindy Sockman for their excellent work on this.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And just for the public watching and those in the building here, LGCC is Local Government Coordinating Commission. Okay, but the importance of that group talking about this is it has members of the governing body of the City Council and of Bernalillo County Commission as well as APS. So it's a perfect place for this conversation of coordinated effort for this opioid settlement money to be discussed and hopefully agreed upon for this coordination. As many folks who spoke tonight, we really need to coordinate as a community. This is a terrible opioid crisis that has hit all of us, and we want to expend these funds to give back to the communities that have been so deeply affected, which is probably everyone in our community, and the money's coming in over time. So this strategy is very important that the Vice Chair talked about. Any other comments from the Commission? Commissioner Barboa?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Agree with all the comments that Commissioner Olivas said, Vice Chair Olivas. And just also want to thank Ms. Julie Ron. We've heard, and hopefully everybody was able to attend one of their own town halls, and and then the smaller ones. I think we've done such a thorough process, and I hope people can feel proud of that. I do think, as Chair Baca just mentioned, right, we have to continue to think collaboratively because that's where the true impact comes. I know I talked a little bit last time we got to meet with you, Ms. Julie Ron, about diversion courts and maybe some court presence stuff in here that which I haven't been able to find necessarily. Is there and I think that subcommittee, I can address it there. Just wanted to name some of that here, but I guess what I mostly want to say, sorry, thank you, is that, right now we're in a really dangerous place when we see that that there is such a crisis and people are scrambling for answers, and this money, these resources have come, and none of these recommendations in a time when it's really easy to say we must be tougher on crime or we must increase penalties here or do that. We've seen tried and true that those things do not deter crime. but that even when we look back in the history, when we've had similar times, like during the crack epidemic or other in the cycles of increased drugs, increased violence, the things that have worked is a lot of what these recommendations point back to, right? Connecting community resources when people need it, increasing our access to medical assisted treatment. And I think even our tonight work on cannabis, like ways that golden, some of those opportunities we heard about where we can educate hospitals to not give the type of level of drugs. We can use this strategically and smart. And I'm just thankful that at this time, when we're also combating a lot of, well, for me, I guess I'll speak for myself. When I feel like we need to be offering these kind of what are we working for rather than just what we're working against. I'm really proud to be part of this work and see these recommendations come out that, are really about how we do an asset strengths-based approach to how we get our communities what they need, rather than, punishment. And so I just want to thank the whole team, thank all the folks on LGCC for willing to partner and walk through this, and thank Ms. Julie Ron and all the folks at Vital Strategies and Cindy Sockman for continuing to give your time and effort. That's the way so many people are giving because this is such an important time and challenge, and we're lucky to have so much resource at our fingertips. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner. Did you have any final
Madam Chair,
statement?
if I might, I'd like us all to recognize that a lot of the leadership in keeping this project on track was honchoed by Kathy Court of Legislative Affairs. She was the one that kept the city and the county on task to ensure that we got a quality product at the end. So this initiative started months before I arrived on the scene. So I think she deserves our recognition as well. And I want to express my thanks to her.
Thank you, Ms. Court. Good. Okay, and we did have one more public commenter that I believe is on Zoom now that we weren't able to hear prior on this issue.
Ms. Julie Radosevich, if you can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you.
Go ahead.
Chair Baca and Bernalillo County Commissioners, my name is Julie Radosevich, and I speak tonight on behalf of the Metropolitan Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, a nonpartisan board with a broad representation from the greater Albuquerque area. I serve as the board's vice chair. Bernalillo County and the city of Albuquerque will receive nearly $145 million over the next 10 years in new funding through litigation with opioid pharmaceutical manufacturers. Together, Bernalillo County and the city of Albuquerque can leverage these dollars to support overdose risk and prevention services for families of New Mexico affected by drug addiction. The Metropolitan Parks and Recreation Advisory Board invites you to consider using some of these dollars explicitly for prevention, utilizing parks and recreation facilities in the greater Albuquerque area, as well as Bernalillo County for strategic prevention programming. Albuquerque has nearly 300 parks, most within 10 minutes walking distance from local neighborhoods, yet specific targeted programming is limited. By a unanimous vote, we recommend programming for the following efforts using opioid settlement dollars to support communities impacted heavily by the opioid crisis. Community programming for the proposed Westside Indoor Community Recreation Center, outdoor recreation and education programming for children impacted by opioid use-related crimes, including gun violence, other park programming targeting underutilized parks, particularly in underserved and economically disadvantaged neighborhoods, perimeter walking trail at John Adams Middle School and other community schools, and support for walking school buses, particularly in the International District. As the Commission formally adopts the strategic plan, we hope this elected body will leverage our parks as a tool for strategic prevention programming, particularly for families, including children affected by drug addiction.
Thank you, Ms. Radosevich. And with that, I think that's the end of this topic, unless you had any closing remarks, Dr. Lindstrom. No.
No,
you.
Madam Chair, I think I'm good, and Cindy Sackman's certainly here and did all of the community engagement work, and I can't sing her praises enough either. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, wonderful. We'll move on to item 5, approval of the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, can you please provide resolution numbers?
Yes, ma'am. 5A is FR 2024-130. 5I is ordinance 2024-22. J is AR 2024-131. K is AR 2024-132. L is AR 2024-133. We'd come over to M, which was in, which will be AR 2024-134. And the next is AR 2024-135.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Benson.
could we just for public record, clarify which at-large positions the 4 on, no, I'm sorry, are they all for the SORB, Sheriff Advisory Board?
Yes, on 5B.
Thank you, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the consent agenda has been published and made available to the public. Therefore, I move to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, can you please call a roll call vote?
Chair Baca,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olivas,
Yes.
Commissioner Barboa,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson.
Yes.
So called. Thank you.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
Vice Chair Olivas.
If I may, just a point of personal privilege, I just quickly wanted to thank all the individuals that we just appointed to, I believe everybody we appointed tonight was appointed to the Sheriff's Office Advisory Review Board. Very important citizen board led by volunteers, and just want to thank everyone for stepping up to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we move on to item 6, adoption of ordinances, amendments to the county code, planning and development services, zone code amendment. Director Nick Ham to present.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, hello again. I'm actually going to defer the floor to Ms. Maggie Gould, the County Zoning Administrator.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I'm Maggie Gould. I am our County Zoning Administrator and Hearing Officer. We have 3 amendments to the zoning code. ZTC 2024-0001 is a proposed text change to the comprehensive zoning code in order to add the use of a mobile food establishment or food truck court. The Commission heard this proposal last year, but unfortunately, this was left out of the CLI zone. So this is basically a cleanup, which amends the zoning code to allow this use in the CLI zone, which is our commercial light industrial zone. This would allow multiple food truck establishments on one lot, but would also require a site plan to verify that access and parking is available. The number of units would be limited by the capacity of the site, so fewer units, smaller site, larger site, more units. These regulations also require on-site restrooms and sanitation facilities so that the use isn't burdensome to surrounding properties. So we're hoping this amendment provides food opportunities for people that are working in more industrial areas and may provide some economic opportunities for people who are running food trucks, these mobile food establishments. We did not receive any adverse comments from our commenting agencies nor from the public. We did discuss this with our health protection staff along when we did this last year, and they weighed in, and we have incorporated into these amendments ways that the trucks can meet their health protection requirements. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Any questions, Commissioners?
Okay.
I move approval to introduce and approve for publication.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Chair Baca,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olivas,
Yes.
Commissioner Barboa,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson.
Aye.
And Madam Chair, I need to go back and correct our numbers because of the deferral for our zoning. Our numbers would jump down and I didn't get that changed.
Okay,
So let's go back to 5.8 and make that 129.
oh, okay.
The ordinance number will remain the same on I. J will be AR 2024-131, AR 2024 no, that's 130. The next one is 131. Planning and Development will be 132.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Appreciate that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Let's go to one. So now we are on 6B. Okay. Planning and Development Zone Code Amendments to allow secondary dwelling units. Ms. Gould?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is ZTC 2024-002. These are proposed text amendments to the Comprehensive Zoning Court ordinance to supplement existing language in the ordinance and to offer additional administrative relief for secondary dwelling units in our county's A1, A2, and R1 zones. So in 2022, the county approved an amendment to allow secondary dwelling units as a conditional use if they met specific criteria such as housing type, utility connections, lot size. This amendment proposes to allow secondary dwelling units as a permissive use on all lots that meet the minimum lot size of the underlying zone and meet the specific criteria such as housing type, utility connections, lot size, separation requirements, open space, and all applicable building requirements. Secondary dwelling units would then remain a conditional use on lots that are below the minimum lot size, provided they meet open space and parking requirements. And again, this responds to our 2022 amendment and responds to comments from staff and the public where we have gotten multiple requests for secondary dwelling units on lots that are somewhat below the minimum lot size, but where a secondary dwelling unit could be added comfortably and would fit on the lot. We have plenty of lots, for example, in the North Valley that are maybe a third of an acre, but are developed in a way where you could fit a secondary dwelling unit and it would be in keeping with the character of the area. So we did add to our original based on based on kind of comments from the community, we did add a requirement that the secondary and primary dwelling be architecturally harmonious. So again, trying to have these offer people options, but really keep balance and try to have these fit in with the character of the area. So we only did receive 2 comments regarding this. One of them was about the harmonious language. The other one was expressing support for the amendment and a little more flexibility. We also, after discussing with the public and with staff, we have some additional language we'd like to propose. And that would be adding a little bit more flexibility when somebody comes in for a conditional use. So the current language requires into our conditional use that the secondary dwelling meet the setbacks of the underlying zoning and be located a maximum of 35 feet from the primary dwelling unit. And what we would like to add is the ability to have the zoning administrator have flexibility on both the setbacks and that 35-foot distance from the primary structure. And we're seeing, especially like in the East Mountains, where you have a lot of sites that have topography, so you'll have like a development bench, and then the next nice flat spot may be more than 35 feet away. But again, you would have a large enough property where this would still be appropriate. So these would already be going before the zoning administrator as a conditional use. And so we're just asking for a tiny bit more flexibility there in hopes that we have more room for providing additional housing in the county.
Thank you, Ms. Gould.
And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Vice Chair Olivas, as a sponsor, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm really excited to sponsor this and really grateful for the staff and the CPC for moving this forward from inception. I think it's just a really important arrow in our quiver to tackle some of the housing shortage that we have. It's not going to solve everything, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And I've heard from several constituents that have contacted me about ADUs or, casitas, mother-in-law's quarters, whatever you want to call it. And even though there's still, the conditional use option, that for many people, that's a little bit of a barrier if you don't understand government, you don't understand how all this stuff works. That can be a barrier, even though I think we all know it's a relatively easy one. But this just, moves more of these into the permissive use category. And then for those that don't fall into that clean cut permissive use area, there's still this more flexible conditional use. So I think this is just a really smart way for us to approach development, and is going to help us, chip away at some of that deficit we have. I did have one question, if I may. And I didn't talk to Mr. Ham about this, but I think it's an easy one. The city has offered some pre-drawn plans for these to kind of encourage folks to take advantage of this. Has there been any thought given to either maybe it's just as simple as partnering with them to see if we can get access to those, or developing anything of our own to kind of encourage this?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Olivas, I'm going to try and answer this without casting aspersions on the city's process. We looked at the county's or at the city's plan sets, and our plan reviewers and our building department review staff found a few aspects of that wouldn't meet the county's adopted building code, which is the same as the city's adopted building code. So we've pointed that out to the city, but at present, given their current construction, those plans, we are not confident they'd be able to be utilized to get a county building permit, because there would be revisions that would be necessary that would have to be completed by the designer of those plans. So something we've considered and we're hoping to work with the city on, but at present, I couldn't say in good conscience that that's an option for folks to be able to utilize.
But you are thinking about some sort of bare bones plans in the future, whether it's their plans or it's different ones.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Lewis, it's something we're considering. The giving preference to a single designer is something that we're wrestling with, but it is something that we're trying to sort through.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Want to make a motion?
I'd like a motion for approval.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
I have discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't see you. Please, my apologies, Commissioner Barboa.
No, thank you. This is greatly appreciated. And this is, so because the city already has, this is just for unincorporated areas, just want to make sure I understand.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Barboa, yes, this would just affect the unincorporated areas of Bernalillo County. And you're correct that both the city and Rio Rancho do already have permissive secondary dwelling unit ordinances.
And then, sorry, I haven't read through this, but just to make sure that pieces that I heard about, I'm all for this. I'm hoping to be able to, I have a pretty big property. I'm hoping to do that. I live within the city, so, but I'm glad we're doing this. Does the, about the Airbnbs, because I know there was like a big thing about too many people just making it just for tourists and not, but it was sometimes not helping our, do we have policy within this that sort of make sure people are following, either paying what they need to if they're running it as a business rather than making it a actual housing rental property or whatever?
So, Madam Chair, Commissioner Barboa, we do not have a short-term rental ordinance like the city does. So in this case, whether you developed 1 unit or 2 units on your property, it would be up to you how you use them.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Barboa, I just add that the county, the way we've addressed short-term rentals or things of that nature, rentals generally really, is if people are minding their manners, and what I mean by that is following county ordinance, we've left them alone, and that seemed to be a harmonious situation. Now, if there are bad actors in a neighborhood that are abusing that provision or operating in a way that's harming the peaceful enjoyment of other properties, we'd engage our conventional and existing enforcement procedures for that. But at present, we sort of let the market decide and the neighborhoods themselves decide like what is working, what isn't, and when we do receive complaints, we go investigate those and we pursue them. In working with some of the assessor staff as well, I understand there's a push from their side to sort of try to quantify these from a tax perspective. I don't work for the assessor, but I do know that there are some discussions at least going on in that office to be able to try and capture some of this from a commercial property use perspective.
And where would that happen? Because I assume, and I don't want to come between people and being able to, make profit, or having a second, a short-term rental might be profitable, but we've seen the problems it's caused in the city where people are deciding to have those as rental short-term properties that only serve like seasonal needs and and then it means a lack of actual housing, and then not enough housing on the market. So I don't know if I would assume that the purpose of this was to increase the housing, on the access to housing, even if it's rental, but assuming more long-term rentals, than like an Airbnb or those short-term rentals that are often vacant and only used during certain seasons or for short periods of time. And I guess I'm just asking that it's not truly addressing, or maybe we don't see that problem in the unincorporated areas, but it doesn't necessarily address the housing shortage if we're not being mindful of that piece.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Barboa, the strategy of the county's planning department is to just make housing broadly more available, and making our processes more efficient and these more accessible to members of the public, in hopes that we will develop both types of housing, those that would be used for people to supplement their rent, and also those that would be used for multi-generational purposes or other types of housing typologies that would serve general needs of the public.
Thank you. I don't know if Commissioner Rivas, did you consider all those pieces?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Barboa, I think that what Director Ham has spoken to, sort of letting the market dictate some of those things. I just don't feel like we really have the data as at the county level as far as how many ADUs there are and what the vacancy rates are, that kind of thing. So I think the city has more data because they have a process to collect that. I actually just made a note as we were talking about reaching out to the assessor and just kind of trying to figure out what he's collected. And I think he's collecting countywide, so that would also include those units that are in the city. But I think just, thinking about the market forces with STRs, they're going to be, to me, more located in the city, in areas where there's high demand for that kind of temporary short-term housing for tourists, for conferences, for medical visits, that kind of thing, where people are staying around the UNM area, around the uptown area, those kinds of things. So I guess I would say that I haven't considered that, but I really agree with the staff's approach here on this specifically. And I think if we, to me, just, proposing this to you, that we could certainly think about STRs and how to treat those. And maybe we want to have that conversation about short-term rentals and how the county treats those. But I feel like that's kind of a separate issue because while some people may turn their casita into an STU, it does not mean that they will. And I think that the more appropriate place for that to me is just like in the business regulations, that kind of thing. I think that's kind of how the city does theirs is through business licensing.
Okay. Thank you. I won't ask because I don't know that I thought that I read that it was within the zone, like this ordinance, that meant that they have to claim it for one use or the other, or pay a different rate, because it's sort of I guess my hope is to incentivize more people to build housing on their spots that would house our communities and make it more affordable. Like, my son lives in the city, definitely, but if they wanted to, I think if they could get more affordable housing, rental apartments or whatever. But anyways, I don't oppose this. I think it's a good legislation. I'm glad we're doing it. Thank you for bringing it. And let's just keep an eye, I guess, on how the market moves.
Thank you. Good discussion. I will call the vote, and we need a roll call vote. This is Madam Clerk.
Chair Baca,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olivas,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Aye.
Commissioner Barboa.
Yes.
And Madam Chair, right quick, can we
Yes.
go back and relook at some of these numbers?
Sure.
There's one that Julie didn't hear me say, so that's 5L would be 132. O would be AR 24-133. P would be AR 2024-134.
So we've got the, is that
So
correct,
for the
Juliana?
published agenda, we have 5A is 129.
Right.
5J is 130. 5K is 131. 5L is 132. We skipped, we moved 5M to 7E, so we're not issuing a number at this time. 5N is 133. 5O is 134.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gould, item C. Please.
Yes, all right. Madam Chair and Commissioners, last one, ZTC 2024-0003. These are proposed text changes to the Comprehensive Zoning Code in order to adopt definitions and use regulations for indoor shooting ranges in the C1, C2, CLI, M1, and M2 zones, and to allow outdoor shooting range as a special use in designated rural areas. So the Bernalillo County Comprehensive Zoning Code contains no provisions for indoor or outdoor shooting ranges. And so this amendment seeks to allow safe places for firearms education, training for law enforcement, and sport shooting. Shooting range, as I said, is not listed as a use, nor do we have any definitions provided. And so the Planning Department has received several requests, including from our own Sheriff's Department, to develop this use. So this amendment would allow indoor ranges beginning in C1 as a conditional use, so requiring a public hearing, allowing input for nearby neighbors to make sure that this is compatible with any existing development, and then permissive in C2 and above. So C2, CLI, M1 are more intense zones. The use requirements obviously would include following all state and federal regulations, but we would also require a noise study to ensure compliance with the county's noise ordinance, and again, to make sure that these are going to be compatible uses. Outdoor shooting ranges could be developed through our special use process, but only in the designated rural areas of the comprehensive plan. We're looking at a 40-acre minimum for the site, and then we would need setbacks from the shooting range, the shooting areas themselves, and again, a similar noise study. And so we looked at some regulations in other communities. We looked at kind of the city's regulations in order to inform this proposal. Interestingly enough, the city just sort of lumps them into indoor entertainment facilities. The county didn't really have a similar category to kind of tuck that in. So this I feel like this gives us the ability to allow the development of this use in a safe way that may encourage people that are now shooting in areas where it's not really appropriate to come in. It also provides training not only for our own Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, but for other private contractors that are required to have that credential. And again, you know, people who simply enjoy this as a sport, people who need to be qualified marksmen for various jobs. We received no public comment from this and have no proposed amendments, but again, will stand for any questions.
Any questions from Ms. Gould? Vice Chair Olivas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support this. I think it's good policy to have this regulated space for firearms use. My question is totally off topic in a way, but is overnight shelter permissive in any zone category in the county?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Olivas, I actually would need to pull up our code and find that answer for you. And I am happy to get that to you as quickly as possible.
No problem. I was totally offhand, but I just thought of it.
I guess, which is, well,
That's the closest we get.
yeah. Madam Chair, Commissioner Olivas, a campground would be as close as we get, and that's generally a special use permit. If that's something you want if you want a little more information on that, again, I'm happy to put something together.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Director
Madam Chair, Commissioner, just a clarifying question. Could, and maybe this is appropriate offline, but we would need a little more detail about what the specifics of that use would look like for us to be able to adequately answer that for you. But happy to engage in that.
I'll send a follow-up to y'all and we can have further conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So back to the zone code amendment on the shooting range identification. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Baca,
Yes.
Commissioner Olivas,
Yes.
Commissioner Barboa,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gould. Thank you, Mr. Ham. Move on to item 7, adoption of resolutions. Madam Clerk, can you please provide resolution numbers?
Let's give this a whirl. AR 7A is AR 2024-35. B2 is FR 2024-136. C is AR 2024-137. D is FR 2024-138. And E that got moved from M, I think it was, is AR 2024-139.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Benson?
Question for Madam Clerk. Just to clarify, A is AR 75.
Which one are you looking? AR 2024-135.
135.
7A, is that what you're asking?
Yes,
Commissioner?
ma'am.
Yes, sir.
135. Okay, thank you. That clears up everything else. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you.
And just for clarification, 7B is 136, 7C is 137, 7D is 138, and the new 7E is 139.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Did I not say that?
She just was clarifying.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Julianne. So we move on to 7A, drug and alcohol-free workplace policy revisions. Commissioner Olivas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that the policy before us right here, or the resolution, I should say, which will be followed up by a policy probably at the December meeting, is really an important change that modernizes our drug and alcohol-free workplace policy, or proposes modernizing that to a standard that, as we heard from many eloquent, hardworking individuals for the county, is consistent with state law. Right, that's the bottom line undergirding all of this. But I think at a higher level, right, this is about rights for our workers, rights for folks that we trust every day to save us, literally, when the building is burning down. We trust these folks to operate our detention center under very difficult circumstances. We trust these folks to operate all throughout our county. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, what this also talks about is the rights of blue collar workers really being at a level of parity with white collar workers. That's not necessarily the case here at the county, where currently this is, you know, unlawful for any level of worker. But I think throughout our society, right, we aren't asking these kinds of questions of you know, doctors and surgeons, right, about what their drug uses or their alcohol uses, but we tend to be a little more interested in that when it's folks that are blue collar workers, folks that are, you know, putting in a 9 to 5, clocking in and out. But the bottom line is, right, we're trusting these folks with very important, life-saving, life-changing decisions in our community, and they're taking risks that are tremendous compared to most of us that know nothing about what those risks are like. And they're seeing things in their day-to-day lives that most of us will never see, will never deal with, will never understand. In the few ride-alongs that I've been along with APD, actually, just, absolutely, I don't know how folks deal with that every day in, day out. And so, we know that drug and alcohol use is a problem among many individuals, and particularly when folks get injured, when there are serious workplace accidents, those kinds of things, at no fault of those performing those tasks, right? This just happens in public safety roles. People get hurt. Things happen. And so currently, the only tools in the toolbox, so to speak, are really looking at opioids, hardcore painkillers, those kinds of medications, antidepressants, medications that really haven't been around all that long. And many of them that we know are addictive, we know can lead to really serious mental health consequences and other complications. Cannabis is one that's been around a lot longer. And now that there is, state recognition of this as a medicinally valuable substance, and we're seeing it across the country, that this is something that the science is really showing has tremendous benefits for things like PTSD, serious pain relief, all those kinds of things. I think it's just time that we as a county catch up with the times. But what I want to say here is the first, words of this revision are drug and alcohol-free workplace. That remains ironclad. This proposal does not change that. Currently, today, under the current policy framework, no one should be coming into work under the influence of any substance, whether it's alcohol, whether it's opioids, whether it's marijuana. Under the new policy proposed, that doesn't change. No one comes in under the influence of any substance. We all know that that could have catastrophic consequences for our employees and for those that they serve, whether that's fellow employees or members of the public. This doesn't change that. All this does is say that what an individual does on their time off with regards to cannabis is their choice. Just like we have that choice with alcohol, which in my personal opinion, but I think this is backed up by a lot of data, is a lot more dangerous than what we see with cannabis. Whether that's, domestic violence incidences, whether that's, drunk driving, car accidents, those kinds of things. Again, off duty, but those consequences of misuse and self-medication with alcohol can be far more dangerous than what we see with cannabis and what we have seen with cannabis as it's been legalized throughout the nation, really. We've seen this in conservative states and liberal states. It really doesn't have that divide necessarily. So I think this is really just about freedom, basic recognition of the folks that work for us, being able to make decisions in their own homes and their own lives about what's best for them. Hopefully those are responsible decisions. And then the last thing that I want to say that I think this will ultimately drive is really a closer relationship between supervisors and employees. Because what this does is essentially sets out a framework where you can no longer rely on a test, right, a yes or no test, a cannabis test, to determine if someone's under the influence, right? This is about having those kinds of recognition conversations, training supervisors, training management to, recognize impairment. But it's not just about impairment for cannabis, right? That kind of training is going to filter down across the board and I think actually lead to a safer environment, right? Because this is about recognizing if an employee is coming in tired, if they're coming in stressed, if they're showing signs of fatigue, if they're showing signs of just general instability, maybe something's going on at home, maybe no drug issue involved, but the additional training that I believe this is ultimately going to prompt throughout our workforce is, I think, going to have a net positive benefit, bringing supervisors closer to their employees and more keyed in on what's happening with that employee's individual health and mental state. So I think this is a change that's long overdue, recognizing the hardworking people here at the county and maintaining our commitment that this is a drug and alcohol-free workplace, period. So I hope that my colleagues will support this important change and look forward to further discussion here. That I'd make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Second.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Benson.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Levis. With cannabis being legal, if an individual has a prescription for it, but they're not allowed to use it. And that just incentivizes alcohol abuse. And I've known many first responders who have struggled with alcohol abuse as they self-medicate to deal with PTSD and trauma and pain. And so, cannabis is much less addictive physically, psychologically somewhat, but alcohol is much more dangerous for addiction. So, yeah, I think this is straightforward and makes sense. Thank you.
Commissioner Barboa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair Olivas, for bringing this. A long-time supporter. I'm so grateful for your very direct and clear way of solving this issue. And I agree with everything that's been said. As a violence and trauma survivor, I know, and having a family full, we've heard me all say before, folks, I think a generation before us, you know, it was almost culturally acceptable to deal with your worries, your anxiousness, your traumas through alcohol. And we see where that's taken us. And we know that we don't, just like Commissioner Benson just said, we don't see that same reactions with cannabis use, but rather the opposite, that it's been proven to help people with traumas and or chronic conditions like cancer and things like that. I just want to restate that the state doesn't drug test for cannabis. University of New Mexico Hospital has already recognized this, also does not drug test for cannabis. Courts and corrections have not actually provide this for probation and parolees that can get medical cannabis while on probation and parole. And so I think, like you said, this is just an upgrade that gives more tools, and I actually think will serve as a recruitment and retention for our workforce across our county. So thank you very much for bringing this. I'm very much in full support. And thank you to our firefighters that bravely showed up today.
Thank you. Vice Chair Olivas.
I wanted to say a couple things in closing. There will be a follow-up to this resolution. I'm hoping at the December meeting, we're having another meeting on this week with HR, with our county attorney, to actually, finalize the policy changes that supplement this. But we'll continue to update you all on that, hoping that we can have that in December. And then the last thing I wanted to say is just really a huge thank you to all the folks that have been involved in pushing this forward, to IAFF and our firefighters, to the folks at AFSCME, and to many of the DCMs and other folks that I've spoke with and that have been part of this process and, supportive of this, and just so helpful in gathering research, presenting what's happening in other communities and municipalities. This has truly been a team effort, and I'm just so appreciative for everyone that's been involved in this, including our county attorney and Diego, who's also been instrumental in this and provided a lot of support and legal background for this. So with that, I thank you.
I'll call the question. Madam Clerk.
Chair Baca.
Yes.
Vice Chair Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Barboa.
Yes.
Commissioner Benson.
Yes.
So called.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Item 7B, Capital Improvement Program. Ms. Kathy Court.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. This motion before you is for an approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Bernalillo County and the Mid-Region Council of Governments for the administration of GROW funding in Bernalillo County. It's also a motion to approve financial resolution FR 2024-136, budgeting GROW funds from Mr. COG in the amount of $1 million. And finally, it's a motion to authorize the county manager to approve the agreement and subsequent amendments. So basically what we are agreeing to do with this IGA is manage 6 GROW Fund grants. 2 of those will be managed by ABC Community Schools. 3 will be managed by the Economic Development Department for the South Valley Economic Development Center. And the 6th project will be managed by our Department of Behavioral Health Services and used for the Young Adult Program, the new Young Adult Program. And with that, I stand for any questions.
I just have a comment, and I wanted to thank you, Kathy, for your hard work on this. This Grow Fund is a new thing for the whole state, and I think that Bernalillo County, working with our COG, has really shown, really proactive, working this through with our Council of Governments. So these are good projects. Our legislators want us to spend this money, and now we have the capability to do that. So thank you for your work.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Chair Baca. Oops, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Commissioner Barboa, the question?
Sorry. Yes, I had a couple questions for Miss Kathy Court, sorry. Are all of these that are appropriate, is this complete, all of the Grow funding committed by the legislature, or is this like a phase of 6 projects?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Barboa, there were actually a lot of Grow Fund grants. I can't even tell you the total number of Grow Fund grants that were appropriated to the Mid-Region Council of Governments. The legislation was under HB 2, and it required that the Mid-Region Council of Governments administer all the Grow funds and be fiscal agent for all those funds. So these are 6 of those projects that are very specific to Bernalillo County programs that are currently taking place. So this is an IGA just to administer those programs, but at the end of the day, Mr. COG will still be in charge of the finances, and that will be basically seeking reimbursement from Mr. COG, but they are still responsible overall for these grants. We're just implementing these 6 projects.
Thank you so much, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Also, and because I just thought it was a little interesting that all of them are the same amount, right? Is that just because they're going to be, I mean, I don't imagine they were all the same amount given. They'll be phased in. We might be seeing these again when we get these spent out the door, or?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Barboa, so the Grow Fund was kind of an oddity where our representatives were given $160,000 for 4 projects, and senators were given $200,000 for 4 projects that they could pick. So that's where you're seeing most of them are $160,000 projects because they were funded by a representative at the state legislature, and the $200,000 project was actually funded by Senator Ortiz-Pino, and that's why that's a $200,000 amount.
Amazing. Thank you, Ms. Kathy Corp, for keeping all this aligned and moving forward. And thank you to all those legislators that supported county projects.
Yes. So it has been moved and seconded, and we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Chair Baca.
Yes.
Vice Chair Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Barboa.
Yes.
Commissioner Benson.
Yes.
So called.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7C, Economic Development. Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. The Economic Development staff requests approval of the inducement resolution in connection with the proposed project located in the county for the purpose of financing the planned acquisition and rehabilitation of the St. Anthony's Plaza through the development of the project site and the operation as set forth in their project plan, providing for the conveyance of the proposed project to the county for purposes of facilitating tax abatement for this project, which will retain our existing affordable housing stock and will improve the quality of the residents that live at the St. Anthony's Plaza. Stand for any questions.
I'd just like to say that thank you, Marcos, for working on this. This is more family housing, which we all know we are working toward. I do want to commend you and the developer for reaching out to the community in the surrounding area, which is in my district, and received comments, and they are in favor of moving forward on this, as I understand it.
Madam Chair, you are correct.
Thank you. Any other comments? I move approval. And
Second.
Commissioner Barboa, you had your hand up? It's been moved and seconded, but we'll go to discussion.
No, sorry. That was from last time. Thank you, though.
Oh. Any further discussion?
All right.
Madam Clerk?
Chair Baca.
Yes.
Vice Chair Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Barboa.
Yes.
Commissioner Benson.
Aye.
So called.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Item 7D, Finance. Recovery Housing Campus. Ms. Denise Benavides.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. I'm Denise Benavides. I'm the Principal Financial Analyst for the Finance Division. Bernalillo County is committed to working with the City of Albuquerque to support the implementation of a recovery housing campus for persons experiencing homelessness who have a diagnosis of substance use disorder, including an opioid use disorder, for the benefit of all city and county residents. The Recovery Housing Campus, located at 3401 Pan American Freeway Northeast, will include approximately 50 single-occupancy pre-manufactured structures, toilet shower buildings, laundry facilities, and community buildings. Approval of the FR will provide a capital contribution in the amount of $800,000 for the purpose of funding a portion of the architectural costs and property construction. The remaining motions will authorize the county manager to approve the agreement and execute any subsequent amendments related to and resulting of this agreement. The city will be the lead agency for the project and for the performance of all work related to the completion of the project. And I stand for questions.
Again, I thank you, Ms. Benavides, and I urge everyone's support on this. This is a very good project, working together closely with the City of Albuquerque for much-needed housing. So I move approval.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Vice Chair Olivas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank you, Denise, and ICM Reagan for pushing this project forward. I know the funding sources have flopped around a few times, and I know that you've had your struggles with the city just to nail this down, and it's been a project that's evolving, but I think it's really important for our community, and I hope that it's the first of many, although I wish that we didn't have to build any of these, but we definitely need more transitional housing and pathways to recovery for folks, and really hoping that this is the first leg of that journey. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? We'll call the vote. Madam Clerk?
Chair Baca,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olivas,
Yes.
Commissioner Barboa,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item E, Planning and Development Services. Mr. Ham.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, good evening once again. Last time, this is item 7E. It is an item that was pulled off of the consent agenda. Unfortunately, I transposed one of the resolutions from the list of nuisance abatement properties that you all had for consideration tonight. This is a property on Pajarito Mesa. It's rather remote. It's very close to the Rio Puerco. It's inundated with trash and tires. It has an abandoned and dilapidated structure that is accessible to the public. It has a large water tower that appears to be failing in some instances. Unfortunately, this property, because of its remote nature and the structure being there, has been used as a chop shop, so to speak, for vehicle theft rings. BCSO has responded to this property a number of times and removed stolen vehicles from it. So the department is asking for commissioners' approval to be able to enter, remove nuisances, and return the property sort of a clean and natural vegetative state. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions? No? I move approval.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded.
Chair Baca,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olivas,
Yes.
Commissioner Barboa,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson.
Yes.
So called.
Thank you, Commissioners.
I would just like to thank you, Director Ham. Your staff has been busy, and good work. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We'll stay that way. Thank you.
Item 8, approvals. Finance. Again.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of Commission. My name is Jenny Haken. I am a Principal Financial Analyst in the Finance Division. I am here to present an ARPA agenda item. The two motions are as follows. Motion 1 reallocates ARPA funds from Project 118 Upper La Cueva Watershed Project to be used to fund an eligible ARPA project or initiative. This project was originally approved on agenda item 20269 by the BCC on May 9th of 2023. In accordance with expenditure category 5.6, clean water, stormwater, in the amount of $5 million. A portion of this funding has been used for design and to conduct a study for the project, leaving an amount of $4,350,000
$430.61 available for reallocation. Due to the cancellation of this project, staff recommends reallocation of this item for another eligible ARPA project. And then just real quickly, motion 2 would approve the use of ARPA funds in the same amount of $4,350,430.61 for NI 26 public safety payroll and benefits for the Metropolitan Detention Center, MDC, in accordance with expenditure category 3.1, public sector workforce payroll and benefits for public health, public safety, or human services workers. This ARPA funding enables Bernalillo County to fund critical public safety payroll expenses at MDC. This project was reviewed and approved by the ARPA core team to be recommended for BCC approval. The use of these funds will enable the county to offset overtime budget overruns for the fiscal year 2025. The funding will be obligated and expended by the December 31st obligation deadline. And I stand for any questions. I also have Director Brian Lopez here for any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Benson, did you want to make this motion?
Sure, I'll make this motion. Madam Chair, I'll speak to this. I want to thank Mr. Lopez. You worked really hard on the watershed project, but you also listened to the constituents saying that they didn't want it right now. And I'm glad we get to use these funds for another project. And but I also appreciate your professionalism and showing up to all the community events to hear the comments. And yeah, you're top notch. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Chair Baca,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Barboa,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson.
Aye.
So called.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Item 8B, Metropolitan Detention Center.
Good evening, Madam Chair, fellow commissioners. Before I turn the floor over and introduce our latest team member, I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize Commissioner Benson and his comments at the opening about the loss of our MDC family. That was greatly appreciated. Recognize it is a tough job what we do, and as one of the leaders in the law enforcement community, you always want to see your team go home the same way they came, and unfortunately that wasn't the case. So I'd like to thank you for that recognition. And finally, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, Shirley, and I apologize about not the formal recognition, because for those of you that don't know, when I did try to establish that, she swiftly put me in my place and told me, no, this is Shirley and Kai, and that's a relationship that we built upon. So I wanted to recognize it, and I appreciate everything you've done for me in this position, and thank you. And now to move on to why we're here. First, I'd like to formally introduce Joe Sanchez. He's joined the MDC family, and he will be moving forward with us on the McClendon. So I will defer the floor to him.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner, Commissioners. Joe Sanchez, County Legal, the compliance monitor for the county. As with Mr. Warden Smith, we are here to request that the Commission approve the stipulated order addressing the staffing issues in regards to the McClendon suit, as was discussed earlier.
Any questions? Vice Chair Olivas.
I have a question, not on that specifically, but just wanted to welcome you and just ask you, or Warden, if you could just tell me a little bit more about your role, kind of what work you'll be doing there.
Certainly, Madam Commissioner, Commissioner Olivas. Yes, my primary duty is to monitor the compliance with McClendon. As you're aware, that suit has been going on for decades, ultimately. So the county has a lot of resources invested in meeting those requirements for the suit. And so my primary objective is to help the county satisfy the various domains and requirements so that we can move away from being underneath the settlement.
Madam Chair, I think that's fantastic. Thank you, Mr. County Attorney. I'm really glad that we have somebody that is dedicated and focused to this. I know we have great outside counsel, but I am really grateful to County Attorney and to the Warden and to yourself for stepping up and doing this. I think this is a fantastic move. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Barboa.
I just want to echo that too. Thank you so much. Thank you for this position. Thank you to the leadership who made this happen. We have needed this, and you're welcomed. And we'll be asking a lot of you. So thank you, and look forward to a time when we can be in full compliance.
Okay, I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Madam
Chair Baca,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olivas,
Yes.
Commissioner Barboa,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson.
Aye.
And that passes. Thank you both. Item 9, announcement of the next commission meeting will be Tuesday, December 10th, the nuisance abatement ordinance appeal meeting at 4 p.m. in these chambers. And item B, Tuesday, December 10th, the administrative meeting will be held here at 5 p.m. in these commission chambers. And we are done for the day. Thank you all. We are adjourned.
Oh, yeah, good move, man. Good move. Actually, at the hospital, Doc.